We also have the president of the Longview Gregg County unit, our sister Gregg County unit, George Kale, is here. And
Hi,
several
Renee. Thank
hello,
you.
glad to have you, George.
Thank you for the invitation. I've had some text here from some other members that they say that their passcode is not working. So I got through okay, but any light I can shed on that?
Becky?
I can't shed any light on that because it always works for me. Since
Yeah.
I started the meeting and nobody else, I mean, we've had some people get in. Somebody else said they had trouble using the passcode, but.
Can they just not click on the link?
It's this person that texted me can't, for some reason, can't do that. They have to put in the password code and password or whatever. But anyway, I'll try to help them through it.
Well, the passcode that's the information on this says CGSH5S. And I'm pretty sure that's what it was, but CGSH5S is in the information box. So if they're trying something different because they thought it said something different, that might be it.
Since we're videoing this, George, this is Suzanne.
Yes.
I'm sure we can take the copy of what we filmed, post it to our respective Facebooks, and share it with our members more effectively that way.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we have you here. I don't know if y'all can hear the ding dongs, but people are periodically joining in as we go. So we're just going to move ahead. Remind all of you all who are members of TRTA, encourage your friends who are not here today, encourage them to join your Zoom meetings at your local or at our local, and always continue to invite new members to join TRTA. We need as many members as we can. Real quickly, those of you who are our members, we sent you a link to the with the agenda and also the minutes of our last meeting in February, and those were approved by the executive committee on Monday. So those are there for your perusal. Cerl, do you have a financial report for us? Cerl? Oh, there she is.
I didn't know you wanted one, but I sent the treasurer's report to Iris, so it should be in their minutes that you send out, or the message.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, it'll be in our next newsletter for sure. Do we have a report from our first vice president? Lois?
Well, I have contacted White Oak about us bringing the books over and just waiting on an answer from their principal.
Awesome. Okay, and anything from Becky real quick?
No, just that we have J.D. scheduled as a program for next month, assuming everything it lines up properly for us, and we hope to see people at the meeting again for next month with J.D.
Okay. All right. Again, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. And I'm going to turn this meeting over to Suzanne Bardwell, who is our legislative chairperson, and she's the one who is in contact and going to introduce our special speaker today. Go for it, Suzanne. And real quickly, if everybody, we're going to mute everybody so that we don't hear all the background noise. And be aware that if you pick your nose or make funny faces at your pets or grandkids, we'll see you. So.
Okay. Some of the things I want to go over very quickly before we get to the meat of the program is to remind everyone how absolutely essential it is that we get out and evangelize and get members to join our respective chapters throughout the state. And we need to be constantly working toward that end with our contacts, comrades, friends, fellow retirees throughout the state. Also, I would like to remind everybody that the last day to register to vote, which surely does not apply to any of our members, is October 5th, which is a Monday. The first day of early voting by personal appearance is October 13th. The last day to apply for a ballot by mail is October 23rd. The last day of early voting is October 30th. And the last day to receive a ballot by mail is November 3rd. One of the most important sessions is about to come up, and Tim is going to be telling us about this. And with COVID-19, we can expect some huge cuts in the state budget in areas across the board. Tim has been with TRT since 2004. We have the largest retiree organization in the nation, which he has led effectiveness. He has been our advocate at the State House and continues to be, and he's going to be informing us of what we need to do to make a difference in this next session, what we need to know, and how we need to move forward. Tim?
I almost called you, but
Welcome you.
I didn't know if you wanted.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. I appreciate it. I hope you all are doing great. I'm going to turn my screen so that I can see only just a little bit. Getting set up for Zoom meetings can be a challenge. So a couple things that I'm gonna, and I really do appreciate that introduction. If you all are looking at the screen and you see me, if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, you will see a button that says mute. That's your microphone button. If you go ahead and push that button, I will make sure that we have breaks for questions. We're gonna have some fun, and that way, if you wanna say something critical about what I'm talking about, you won't hurt my feelings by me overhearing it. I'm just kidding. As my staff knows, I don't have any feelings. So I work in the Texas legislative process. I can't afford to have feelings. So anyway, if you want to click on the mute button, that'll be great. Next to it is the one that says video, which I really do like to look at the audience. So you can keep that one on. And then as you go further over to the right, you'll see one that says participants. And then you'll see right in the very middle, it says chat. And I am going to go ahead and be the first person to use the chat box today. And this is probably my 12th or 15th Zoom local meeting. So we're getting to be a little bit better at these. What I would recommend is that you all use the chat box during the presentation and during this discussion. And that way we can keep a record of what questions come up instead of, we'll have a Q&A time at the end like always, but if you're thinking of something about what I'm talking about and you want to type it into the chat box, by all means, go right ahead and do that. So if you're looking at the chat screen, you will see a phone number. That is my cell phone number, 512-626-3268. So if you need me for something, you can feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to talk to you at any time. And I'm going to show you something on my phone, which is interesting. And this is always kind of a fun game. But if you want to get a hold of me, the first thing I would say is while you have my cell phone number, the worst way to probably get a hold of me is by calling. That cell phone number is best for texting. I've already been told today that my voicemail box is full. I cleaned it out last night. It's full already. But these are my counts. It's probably hard to see, but I have about 80,000, 85,000 emails and 1,052 text messages and a full inbox for my voicemail. So what does this mean? It means that I'm terrible at organization and that it's a whole lot easier if you need me to text me. So I'd appreciate it if you keep that number handy. If you have someone that's a retiree and they need help, you can share that number all you want. It's not to an operator or not to a staff person. That is my cell phone. So if you need to get a hold of me, that's the best way to do it. The second thing that I would say is that I'm going to try not to type in the chat box anymore because I have this, and I'll just, because it's funny. Here's my keyboard. Doesn't it sound like one of those keyboards where you're at the airline and they're typing in who knows what when you just, all you're trying to do is see if you're, I mean, I don't know if they still do that. I haven't been on an airplane since who knows when. But you know, who knows if we'll be using airplanes again in the future. But my guess is that someday this is all going to settle down. And when it does, the work that you are doing in your local to keep things moving will be the glue that holds the organization together. And I really do want to commend all of you, both in leadership as well as the membership. Thank you for keeping this going. It would be really easy to just wait until things pick back up. And I think the damage to an organization like ours would be almost, I don't know that we could recover if it were not for your willingness to try, to have these discussions and have these meetings. It's not easy. It's not fun. It does offer us some new ideas and some new ways of doing things. But from me to you, I just want to personally thank every single one of you for your hard work and your willingness to try to download the Zoom app and to do all this stuff. It just really means a great deal. So, and I am interested in your next speaker coming up in a month or two. I heard that Jay Dean is going to be here, and so pass on my best to Jay, and I hope you all have a good conversation. You all have a really, you have a really fond place in my heart. And you may not think that I always, have in the back of my head these memories, but I do. The memories of Susan and others putting together those big rallies that really spurred the state into action. I think after 2017, going into the sessions, I remember sitting on that plaza. There was one time that it was sunny and pretty, and another time that it was a little rainy and wet. But you all did the hard work, and I think the entire state of Texas owes, and not just retirees, but active and retired school people. We owe a debt of gratitude that many people will not even know started. I think that fire was lit to do something and to use the rainy day fund because of y'all's group and because of your tenacity and your work and your dedication. And, that's what grassroots is all about. You exemplify that. And so I commend each and every one of you for doing it. Keep it up. We've got a long ways to go. We still have plenty of issues that we're going to deal with. But I want you to always know that I will never forget the work that you all did, putting those signs together and getting all those folks, and having Trish Conrad works for, who's our, Gary Van Dever was there. We had senators there. Brian Hughes came. You guys killed it. It was awesome. And I'd love to see more of that as we are able to start gathering again. But that'll, those days will come. So anyway, we got a lot to talk about, and I really would much rather get questions and answers from y'all. So let's start with just kind of the main items that, if you looked at your computer yesterday, you saw an inside line from us that talked about having a conversation with John Cornyn and MJ Hager. We are going to try and start doing more of these during election season. I think that as far as races go, that somebody that all of our members could listen to and potentially have an opportunity to vote for. There's just not a lot of people on the ballot this time where all of our members will have the same people to choose from. So, but this U.S. Senate race is definitely heating up, and I think that there are important items that we want these candidates to commit to. I think we want to hear their points of view. I am not a journalist. I am not a political commentator or a pundit. I'm just kind of like y'all. I'm just a person who wants to hold our elected officials accountable for the words and for their ideas. And so that's what we're going for. You know, we want to hear what they have to say about the issues that matter most to our members. And I promise you the first questions that'll come out will be about the windfall elimination provision, government pension offset, ideas like mandatory Social Security, you know, the big topics for our federal agenda. I have extended invitations to several of my friends here in Texas, as well as across the country, to ask for some input on questions that they might like to see us ask. This Texas position would be one of, you know, high influence in the legislature, in the federal legislative process. And so we're getting some suggestions from AARP. We're getting some suggestions from NRTA, from groups like the National Council on Teacher Retirement. All of those are fine. I've even got my friends at ATPE providing some questions, but we have far more important people that we want to get questions from, and that's our membership. And you are about to receive, and if I can do this while we're talking, you know what, y'all? Let's just do this together. How about that? So I'm going to send my approval on the next inside line right now. And what this one is going to tell you is how you get to watch the MJ Hager and the John Cornyn town halls. Yesterday, we didn't include it, not because we forgot, but because we were still doing some testing on the overall platform that we're going to use, which is both some website called YouTube and some other website called Facebook. Both of them are highly accessible. They're free to use. And if you don't have Facebook, you can always use YouTube. If you don't like either one of those, you can watch it on our website. And we are going to record it. But what I'm sending out right now is the directions on how to watch, and that you can still submit questions. So we probably have about 200 responses, maybe more, of people who got that yesterday and started submitting questions. So if you're there, if you've already submitted your question, you know, great, we've got it. We're looking for it. We're putting them in categories. If you would like us to ask something, send it our way. I would also suggest that there are a lot of issues that seniors will want to know. You know, for example, I'm really dealing with a question about rapid testing in nursing homes. The pandemic outbreak has hit our nursing home industry so hard. And I am, and not that it really, you know, but in a former life, I'll just put it this way. In a former life, I worked on a grant where we wrote national standards that could be used for an ombudsman role for nursing home residents. So, and if you were living in a nursing home and you felt like your rights were being taken away and you feared retribution by that nursing home owner or operator, our program was designed to ensure that you were not hurt. And a lot of people are hurt in a nursing home. I mean, physically hurt. And so we wrote these national standards. And so I am what is recognized now as a trained nursing home ombudsman. And so our objective is to ensure that families have access to their loved ones. And in this environment, that has been a real challenge, it's been a real difficult situation. So I intend to ask maybe some questions about long-term care facilities and how we help retirees. And so anyway, if you have questions, send them our way. September 29th, I think it's 4 o'clock is the time. And some people have said, well, October 3rd is a Saturday. Yep, it's a Saturday. And it's the only day that we really could get the amount of time that we'd want to get with candidate Hager. The calendars are full, and I get it's the last month of campaigning. So again, if you can't watch it on a Saturday, we're going to record it. Now, other people have said, well, September 29th, that's the WWF smackdown between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I mean, yep, that's going to be the big show that night, but that's not until like 7 or 8 o'clock at night or something. So our event's at 4 o'clock. It's going to go for about 45 minutes. You'll have lots of time that you can still watch everybody talk about consumer level politics, or at least, you know, what I call consumer politics in this country. So anyway, that's kind of the big news. And I'm going to take a little break here. And just remember, if you have questions about any of that, you can put it in the chat box. and we'll keep an eye on it. So let me talk about the coming legislative agenda. Susan did a great job of setting that up. I really think that the pressure will be on. Our legislative agenda is out for people to read. They can see what our priorities are. Our legislative committee put those priorities together based on what our members were talking about. And so number one on that priority list is to make sure that the legislature actually funds Senate Bill 12. So if you recall last session, we got a supplemental payment. It was paid for out of the rainy day fund. As part of that supplemental payment came a funding plan that required certain school districts to pay more. It required active teachers to pay a little bit more, and it required the state legislature to pay a whole lot more based on what they were already paying. And so those items, those contribution levels were all paid for out of the rainy day fund. So when we get there this next time, the legislature will have to actually use real general revenue dollars to make their contributions, their new level of contribution to TRS. The other twist of that is that that funding plan was so well crafted and so well designed that it didn't keep those funding levels at a low level. Those funding levels for the legislature are ramping up. And so we need to see the legislature fully commit to not only the money they promised us last time based on the new funding plan, but the funding plan goes up a little bit in contribution level. So they've got to fund all of what we made last time, plus the new amount that they have committed to by this state, provision. The good news is that I've talked to the budget writers, and I don't seem to get this sense that they're hoping to cut TRS pension funding. I think the legislature has recognized the value of protecting y'all's pension benefits. Many of them would like to do a raise. Now, there are some that don't. I'll tell you right now, there are some members in the legislature that look at you and say, we don't owe you anything else. And matter of fact, we think that you're getting too much now. And they may not tell you that. Well, some of them would flat out tell you that to your face. But then others would say, I just don't know that we need to deal with that. Now, I don't know exactly where somebody like a Senator Bob Hall would sit on something like this. But if you go back and listen to his comments that he made on the Senate floor during the debate on Senate Bill 12, he said he supported the idea of funding it properly, but he also supported the idea of potentially changing our retirement plan from what it is today to something else, maybe not for current retirees, but for future retirees. So you get this swath of people who have different reactions. I think, and so do you, that Texas has made a promise. We've made a promise to our educators that we will partner with them on their retirement, just like everybody else has, Social Security. And since most educators don't have Social Security, this is their Social Security program. I mean, that is their teacher pension benefit. So if Texas is going to make a promise, they need to live up to that promise. And I think that a lot of elected officials get it. Texas TRS has done pretty good. They've done really well, I think, over the last several decades in trying to manage the funds. But many of you read the newspaper articles that came out in the midsummer that criticized TRS and their investment performance. I got a bunch of emails on that, and the only thing I can tell you is that the guy who wrote that article was, some right, and some was his own opinion. I would say, and I think there's reason to, that it's not whether or not I like TRS or don't like TRS. I love TRS. I'm probably TRS's biggest advocate and fan. I do believe that their overall investment costs have gone too high. I think that the example of the TRS Indeed Tower office space issue is an example of how TRS has gone a little further out there in the realm of what they expect and what their investment performance costs may actually be. It feels a lot like a boutique investment approach. We don't care about boutiques. We care about the most money for the least amount of financial commitment so that retirees can enjoy getting a new whatever, getting a raise. As much as I love the state employees that work at TRS, and I do, I don't know that any of them need 100,000 square feet of the finest downtown office space available. I just, why should retirees pay for that when I've paid, our foundation has written checks for people whose floors are uneven, that water comes in and animals get into their homes because they can't afford to fix their floors in their home. So again, I just don't see the reason that TRS should have the finest office building space in downtown Austin. So that issue is still percolating. It's still out there. And our objective is to make sure that TRS gets the very best investments, that their employees are taken care of, that they're treated correctly in a professional way, but that the costs of the investments are under control. And so I think from that Dallas Morning News article by Scott Burns early in July, I think that article was written, there were a lot of things in it that were right. And so, we would say, we believe in that. There were some other things that are not. And I'll just tell you that Scott really only took into account U.S. equities, U.S. investments. TRS is a global investment player. So, he opened himself up to some criticism when he said, well, you're comparing the entirety of the TRS portfolio only on its U.S. Stock market returns, whereas as a global investor, they've got money everywhere, and they're doing, some places they're doing well and other places they're not. And so anyway, those are the markets, and we're keeping an eye on that. So funding, clearly the biggest issue. TRS will be actuarially sound, I believe. They will not get a 7.25% investment return. They will only get about 7 based on the report that we heard last week. Try to remember that for every 1% of earnings, it's equal to about a 4% state contribution. So even if they're off by 0.25%, that's still a lot of money that will have to be made up over time by the investments down the road. So again, what is our primary objective when it comes to this? Number one, preserve the defined benefit plan. Number two, get retirees a raise. And I do think that you all would be in a good spot, and you've probably already done this, but I would commend Jay and his colleagues in the Texas legislature for passing funding reforms, but also for giving retirees a supplemental payment. And that is, we appreciate that. That's good stuff. We like that. I will also say that with the rising cost of healthcare and the higher cost of living all around, retirees need to be able to expect some increase in their retirement benefits. I think this is the biggest fundamental flaw in our TRS defined benefit plan today as it stands. And that is that Texas, for almost 80 years, has not ever incorporated any kind of financial increases guaranteed in their retirement benefits. Even the federal government, through the Social Security program, can provide some financial increases, even if they're small, 1%, 0.5%, 75%, 0.75%. In the years that they don't do anything, what do they not do? And I know you're all on mute, so I'll go ahead and say it. They don't raise Medicare premiums. So there's give and take where retirees can do better under other systems, but the Texas legislative ideas seem to be that once you retire, you're supposed to be able to live on that retirement income for the rest of your life. And I think that is an inherent and fundamental flaw. At some point in time, I think TRTA is going to be the organization that'll have to say, look, nobody wants retirees to live like that. My daughter, who's 17, and she's amazing. I could turn this into the Grace Lee Amazing Show real quick if you all wanted me to. But, she's thinking about what does she want to do? And the one thing that she always comes back to is she really would like to be an educator. And, she's been to enough TRTA meetings to listen to her daddy give, speeches all around the state of Texas to know that while teachers are appreciated, they may not always be appreciated as much as they could be where it really matters. And so, a lot of her ideas about being an educator are influenced about whether or not she will be, taken care of. Not any of us that know that, I'm one of these people who says, why can't teachers be rich? They are only in charge of the most important aspect of our lives, which is our education. But, everybody says, well, nobody wanted education to be rich. Well, nobody wanted education to be broke either. So when you're, 75 years old and you've been retired for 15 years, is it right that a retiree should expect no new money to pay for anything? And I listen to these folks that are in office and they say all the right things, but then very little actually happens. So, my motto these days is talk is cheap, milk is not. And so, we need to start addressing the idea that retirees should be able to live on their retirement benefits. And if you go decades without giving any more new money, then you're in a position where you can't make that happen. Now, the alternative is to look at something like healthcare. And I have a friend of mine who's in the Texas legislature who says, look, Tim, I would far rather give retirees free healthcare for the rest of their lives than try to mess around with the TRS system. Now, that's his opinion, but it is at least an opinion where he is recognizing that healthcare is expensive. And he, as a soon-to-be retired elected official, will not pay anything for his healthcare. And his spouse will have a healthcare that is subsidized at 50%. So when if you start reducing cost, well, then the dollars can go further. So anyway, healthcare is going to be on our list. We're going to be talking about it. Far different than any other time in the last decade that we've talked about TRS care. And I'll just tell you that, time is running short. So let me just say that the big deal with healthcare is there's a $3 billion surplus in the healthcare fund. Now, I remember standing on that plaza talking about healthcare. Save TRS care. Keep it affordable, keep it accessible. We had the buttons on, and we saved TRS care at the great expense and cost to the members to pay more out of pocket. And now we've gone from having this huge shortfall to having a $3+ billion surplus in the healthcare fund. And so my question is, what will the money be used for? Will it be used to help lower the cost of healthcare for our retirees? I'm telling you, that mail person shows up at my house the same time every day, and that dog does the same thing every day. He starts barking. So y'all, we're just gonna have to listen to that dog bark for a second. Anyway, healthcare is gonna be a big deal. And it's gonna be a big deal because it's very expensive to y'all, and apparently TRS has managed this fund in such a way that they've got a big healthy surplus. There's a lot of speculation about how long that's gonna last and yada, yada, yada. But the bottom line is this: when we ended the last legislative session, there was a $600 million shortfall expected in TRS care. That's bad. And since the time that we've been gone until the time that the next one starts, we've had a $3.6 billion swing the other way. So you had to make up for the $600 million hole that we were in to find out that now we have an extra $3 billion in the bank. And I just know far too many, 41,000 people left TRS care. Thousands and thousands of spouses are paying through the nose for a Medicare Advantage plan in TRS care that is not as good a value as something that, as one of our spouses could purchase in the individual market, but they stay with TRS care because they want to have the access to the healthcare plan that their spouse earned access to during their working teaching career. So, those costs are too high. That's kind of in my opinion, this is a Tim Lee opinion only. If we have a $3 billion surplus in your healthcare fund, y'all are paying too much for your healthcare. So, but TRS hasn't been talking about it that way. They've been really talking about it as what a great thing for us to have a surplus. And maybe one of the things that you all need to talk to Jay Dean about when he's here at the meeting next month would be, how can the legislature work with TRS to still manage a surplus, but not to have such a huge surplus that retirees are still having such high healthcare costs. And if we do believe that the shortfall is only short term, will the legislature try to not fund TRS care this coming legislative session? Because the surplus is going to be spent. Let's all agree that healthcare surpluses get spent. So they're either going to be spent on y'all by making your benefits better or lowering your costs. They're going to be spent on the doctors and hospital networks taking more money from TRS care. Or they're going to be spent by making up for whatever the legislature does not fund in the next budget cycle for TRS care. So those are all parts of this equation that I think that we can keep an eye on. And Jay is, he's a smart guy. He's been following this stuff for a long time. And he's somebody that I really enjoy talking to. So, let's get his opinion on how do we manage that. My guess is that many elected officials don't even know yet that TRS care has a surplus. So, we can engage with him on that discussion. Anyway, that's going to be another big issue for us in this session. Finally, I would say the most immediate impact issue stuff that we're going to deal with in this session, I think, is going to be the what's called the sunset report, or the TRS sunset report. So as you all know, every agency goes through a process where sunset starts to kick in, and we evaluate the agency's need and what they do and how they do it for the state of Texas. And so TRS is in that process. Obviously, TRS is a constitutional requirement, so TRS isn't going anywhere. But they could make a lot of changes. And the one finding that sort of led the pack of all of the findings that the Sunset Commission had after about a year and a half worth of study is that TRS as an agency is not member friendly. So we love the agency. We really like the people who work there, but for some reason or the other, not TRTA, not Oil Patch Local, not our districts, not a state entity that is required to look at other state entities about how they do their job. Their top finding was that TRS is not friendly to retired teachers. So that's a big deal. A lot of that stems from how people were handled during the healthcare debacle in 2017 and what that change represented. A lot of it stems from the work after retirement discussion. There's a lot of reasons. There are a lot of reasons for it. And our objective is to work with the legislative process to make sure that TRS is a friendly agency. TRS, I picked on them some, but I would say that they accepted those report findings and said, yeah, we can do better. Let's do better. So they're not running away from it. They're not complaining about it, but they will need our help to help to chart a better course for how they can treat retirees in a more friendly fashion and take into account their needs and expectations. So that's sort of the legislative overview. I see there's a lot of activity there in the chat box. So I'm going to take a quick peek at that. I see that Brock Gregg has joined us as well. So I welcome Brock. And then I'm going to take a few questions. So if you've got a question that's not in the chat box, feel free. All right. If anybody's got a question, go ahead and shout it out. Okay, nobody's shouting at me. That's always a good thing. All right, so let's take a look at this. First question I'm going to look at is it possible for TRS to walk away from that building? Well, that's a great question. Everything is possible, but it may not be practical. So my belief is, and I think TRS has said as much, is that not only were they a tenant or a prospective tenant in that building, but they are an investor in that building. And so if they break that agreement, there is a concern that the building will have a much harder time to be profitable. And if they're not profitable, then TRS is going to lose on the investment side of the equation. So, the whole thing represents sort of a lose-lose situation. They could go in there and pay too much for rent for state offices that probably are too lavish and too luxurious. And they lose because it's a matter of public opinion, and I think they're spending too much money. If they break the agreement and they leave the building, then they got to find somebody else after a breach of contract, and who knows what will happen then. So what their solution was to sublease the building to someone else. I will tell you right now, as of this, as of yesterday or 2 days ago, I have a report from Downtown Austin Building Alliance that there's about 8 million square feet of unleased business space in downtown Austin. If you would have told me a year ago that Austin had 8 million square feet of unleased business space, I would tell you, you're crazy. Obviously, the pandemic has smashed into the leased office space environment and it has shattered that model. And so where we stand today is that TRS has 2 leases now. They were in a building that they were being told they had to leave or renew the lease. So they were going to leave that building and go to the Indeed Tower. Well, then the whole situation blew up and they decided, well, let's keep the lease for the 100,000 square feet. We'll find a new tenant to take that off our hands, and let's go back to the building that we're in, negotiate a new lease with them, and stay in that building and pay them rent. So now you all are tenants in 2 buildings and paying leases on 2 buildings instead of just 1. And so, I'm not in charge of TRS. I think it's a mistake for TRS not to reevaluate the situation and throw down the card that says, you might get mad at us, but there was a global pandemic and now we have to reevaluate. So I can't think of anything worse than spending $423,000 a month plus common area maintenance costs, which is interest, taxes, and all sorts of other things. It's probably closer to $800,000 or $900,000 a month in rent. I can't think of anything worse than paying $800,000 or $900,000 a month on rent plus rent on another building. So, and that's exactly the path that TRS is on right now. And so that's sort of their mess. I would love to find ways to help them get out of it, but they're the ones that are ultimately making decisions on it. And we're working with elected officials so that they know what's going on. There was an article written last week by Bob Seckler. It was on our Facebook page. Bob has kind of been bird dogging this thing from the Austin American Statesman. And he's essentially saying that TRS is reporting they don't have anybody who's come to them and said they wanted to lease that 100,000 square feet. So it's going to continue to be a problem, and one that I think may ultimately need more legislative intervention. So good question. And we'll look at some others. All right. Appears that there may be from the profession less double duty, single pay COVID. Yeah. So the question that there's right after the building one talks about, if there's this exodus of educators from the teaching profession, how does that potentially affect TRS? Well, let's just kind of go through the math on that. There are over 100,000 people eligible right now to retire. So if all of those folks left their positions, you're talking about 100,000 new people that would be on TRS care. So that's your first problem right there, is that TRS care probably could not financially absorb the mass exodus of teachers from the classroom. My wife is a teaching aide in Lake Travis ISD. I think that's the name of the ISD. And she gets reports about, which classrooms have a suspected COVID-19 positive case. And there's one of those emails almost every day. And I'm sure that there are school districts all over Texas where, they may have COVID-19 scares and the kids are just, they have a bad cold or they have something else. And then there are others that have, they have the coronavirus. And so I don't know. I think that everyone that was sort of in this said, we're going to go into it with a wait and see approach and we're going to see how things go. TRS will tell you they're not expecting anybody more to retire than what's already going to retire. I don't know. Their projections have not been the best over the last couple of years. So they're also the group that said when they changed TRS care, nobody would leave. So I hope they're right. I hope their objection, their views of people retiring is not off the mark. But, it's possible. I think any of you know, if you know teachers in the area and you think, man, there's this sentiment that things are not any better and they're eligible to retire and they may, then the first impact would be on TRS care. The nice thing is that TRS has about 82 cents of every dollar to pay for the cost of retirement benefits, not for those 100,000 people, but for that 21-year-old that just started teaching this year. So that is actuarial soundness. TRS has the money to pay for your retirement benefits just as they are today for the rest of everybody's lives who's currently retired. And they've got 82 cents of every dollar they need to pay for retirement benefits for that 21-year-old who just started teaching. That is why that funding plan is so important, because we can manage ups and downs and massive retirement shifts if the plan is funded properly. And right now, things are pretty good, but there are always consequences when you have major changes. My first concern would be healthcare. And that would be if a whole bunch of people decided to retire. All right. So Jay, in September referred to a net shortfall of over 7 billion. He did not reference any of TRS surplus. Okay. So a great question, Becky. The comment about how much of the shortfall exists is the overall budget shortfall that Texas may have when they come back and they say, okay, let's pay for all the things that we need to pay for, education and healthcare and public safety and all that stuff that goes into a budget. So how much less do we have this time to spend than we did last time? And I think what he's saying is that projections are they're going to have $7 billion less to spend on all of those things than what they did the last time around. The TRS surplus in their healthcare fund has been a closely guarded, open secret. I don't know that it's been publicized a whole lot. And part of that is because the concern will be that if the legislature hears that there's something in a bureaucratic agency that has a surplus and it's getting funding from the budget, it's not going to get budgeted funding when you've got a $7 billion shortfall everywhere else in the budget. So that's sort of the expectation. And I think that's why TRS is saying, hey, don't go out promoting that we've got this surplus. That's all well and good, but I deal with reality. And if it's there, people are going to know about it. My issue is, what is TRS going to do with the money? Are they simply going to let the legislature say, we don't need funding this time, so don't worry about it? Or are they going to say, hey, look, we should help our retirees by lowering their deductibles? So those are all things that could come about in the session on TRS care. And then how do we need to move forward with Brian Hughes? So I think, that's a really great question. And Susan, I'm sure it was you who asked that question. If you all don't know, your Senator, Brian Hughes, is now chair of the committee that deals with TRS issues. And so it's called the State Affairs Committee. That committee was formerly chaired by a person from Houston, and her name is Joan Huffman. Joan and TRTA had a little bit of a rocky start to begin with, but over time, we really developed, a good working relationship, a good partnership. Brian and I, politics aside, policy views aside, all that stuff. If you just take him as an individual and me as an individual, I don't have any problem telling anybody that for 15 years, I've developed a friendship with Brian. So that being said, does TRTA endorse? Well, I have friends who are Democrats, Republicans. I have a lot of friends in the legislature. It doesn't mean that I endorse everything that they do. And I'm not asking you to do that based on whether or not I'm friends with people. But what I do know is that if I want to pick up the phone and call Senator Hughes about something related to TRS, for example, Sunset, he'll take my call. And that has happened. And so I do think that you all are in an enviable position because you have a relationship with Senator Hughes, and he is a person of influence over the process. And, you know, when the election cycle is over and we come back to the next legislative session, if the Republicans are still in control of the Senate, then, you know, I think it's reasonable to expect that Brian very well may be the chair of state affairs. And that'll be a good position for you all to be in. So I'd say cultivate the relationship. You know, it never hurts to be friends with anybody. I think we should all be more friendly. I think this idea that, you know, consumer level politics means that we have to not like somebody because they have a D by their name or an R by their name or, you know, whatever. I just think that's ridiculous. I think we should all just be friendly. I think we should try to get along as best we can. Vote for whomever you think is the right person for the job. And then when the voting is over, work with whoever has it. So, you know, use that influence that you have to work with Brian and help all TRS retirees. I think it's a good position for you guys. And I look forward to working with him if he's, you know, in that position next regular session. So other questions? Any follow-ups on anything that I've said? Because I have exhausted my time, and I was going to tell you about our new foundation program, but I'm not going to because I think that I've talked way too long already. And so what I would tell you is the foundation has a new program where it's not about charitable assistance or financial relief for people who may have an immediate financial need. Our program is called the TRTF Tutoring Initiative. And so if you're a retiree and you had some extra income by substitute teaching, but you don't necessarily want to go back to a school and substitute teach anymore, we're putting together the state's largest, probably the only, but the state's largest coalition of retired educators and a professional tutoring group that has agreed to exclusively partner with us so that you can become a tutor and you will be able to work with students online and get paid. And so we're projecting that, you know, depending on the way this works, it's anywhere between $25 to $40 an hour, maybe more, depending on what the subject matter is. And you can have all the kids that you want. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. But it is something that our charitable arm, the TRTF, is running. And some of you may already be tutoring. And I talked to a San Antonio group last week, and a person called me and said, hey, I'm a tutor for another company, and they take 25% of whatever I make as a tutor. And I said, man, that's terrible. Our group will take $2 for every hour. So if you're, you know, getting paid $40 to tutor some kiddo in college algebra or whatever, they'll take $2 off the top and you'll keep the rest. So that's the way it's going to work. If that's an idea that is interest to you, I would say look for a Facebook Live that's going to happen probably next week, where I'm going to roll this out to the entire state and tell them what's going on. But the whole genesis of this idea is retired teachers have so much value. They have so much they can do and give back. The last thing I want them to do is give it away for free. I have 4 kids, and one of them is a 5th grader. And I promise you, he is smarter than me. And I would love to have a tutor that he could work with that would, you know, continue to improve the areas that he's already doing great in, like math and science. And, you know, he's my retirement plan. So yeah, I'll spend a few bucks to get a tutor for, no, I'm just kidding. So, all right, y'all. Well, that's kind of that's the spiel. I appreciate you guys listening. Brock, he's got his, I always tell Brock he's got his Princess Leia headphones on. But he's here with us today. And so, Brock, did you have anything you wanted to add before we say goodbye?
No, I just came to get inspired. I always get inspired when I hear you talk, Tim.
Oh, well, that's nice. Your check is in the mail, Brock Gregg. Don't you worry about that. Anybody have any final questions or words of wisdom before we part for this afternoon, or at least before Brock and I say goodbye?
Well, I think once again, it's really important that we get out there and do a better job of enlisting new retirees and getting them to join TRTA, because there's a boatload of retired teachers out there, retired public school employees out there who do not belong to TRTA and who do not understand the importance of its impact. And that's one thing that we really need some specific direction, how to do that effectively moving forward so that we maintain our strength politically as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most important part for a membership organization, is to continue to build the power of the group. You know, when I first moved here, TRTA had 35,000 members. You know, today we have, you know, I think we'll probably end with 95,000-ish members. But at the same time, there were probably 300 and something thousand retirees in the state. And now there's, you know, almost 500,000. So we really continue to, you know, have a need demonstrated in front of us. The numbers keep getting higher on this end exponentially, and our numbers are growing incrementally. And so, you know, I appreciate that. And what I would say is that there are a lot of objectives for this tutoring program so that retired teachers can make money, so we help our kids, help our, you know, our schools. But I would love that as this program takes hold, that if you're sitting around in the, you know, teacher's lounge and they know, you know, so-and-so is about ready to retire, and say, hey, you know, what do you want to do with your time? Well, you know, I'm going to travel some, and I'm probably going to do that retired teachers tutoring program. That's worked out real well. And so I'm going to get involved with those folks. So if you can really hook people into the culture of retirement by picking up a little bit of us through a program like that, I think it's going to start paying huge dividends. I always call it, in my head, I call it the highway, the on-ramp to retirement. And so I'd love it to be the on-ramp to TRTA as well. So, all right, Susan, great comments. Y'all have a great day. You've got my cell phone number. I appreciate everything you do. If you ever need me, let me know. And look forward to hearing how Jay did at the meeting with you guys next time.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here, Tim and Brock.
Thank you. Take care.
Y'all take care.
You appreciate it.
Thank you,
We
Brock.
like what you do for us. Okay. All right, ladies and gents, thank you for coming. In case you don't remember all those dates and things that Tim mentioned and Suzanne mentioned, I encourage you to go to trta.org, then to legislative updates, and then to the Inside Line. Tim does a weekly report that he gives us all kinds of information on. So if you don't already get that in your inbox, you can sign up for that, or you can go to trta.org and get it every week. And there he lists the TRTA 2021 legislative priorities. Also, Suzanne's newspaper, the Gladewater Mirror Facebook page, has all kinds of information on it, especially that from on September 22nd, they posted something from the Texas Tribune that was about a lot of legislative, important voter things that we need to know to keep those dates in mind. So read the Inside Line. I think they told you about everything else, and be sure to vote early or vote by mail. Be safe. Anybody else have anything? Becky?
You're muted, Becky. You're muted, Becky.
You're muted.
Sorry, thanks. My ballot hit my mailbox yesterday to vote.
Good.
So they were supposed to be mailed out the 19th, and that fell on the weekend. So mine has already come.
Good. Suzanne, what else did you have?
Yes, I wanted to thank George and Nancy and Julie and other members that are not a part of Oil Patch for joining us today. And I think that we would love to have you join us for our meeting with Jay if you're available. And we just appreciate you guys so much. Y'all were a huge, huge, huge part of the successful rallies we had. The Longview chapter is phenomenal in its efforts to make a difference in TRTA and with its members, and we cherish your work and your friendship. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Suzanne, for contacting us about this. And thank you, Renee, for allowing us to join you. I have not heard back from Brian Hughes, but I plan on him joining us at our next meeting. So I will send a link of Zoom so y'all can join us also.
Awesome,
I mean,
thank you.
I think we could take advantage of this Zoom business and just kind of do some joint efforts on this. Yeah, we had several of our members. I see Tracy Wilson on there. So Tracy is a member of our group. Joyce, are you a member of our? Yeah, there's Joyce. And of course, Nancy is in there. But anyway, and Julie, good to see you too.
Thank you. Like I say, it's great when we, like you say, it takes all of us.
Yeah, I'll be sending out and sharing information. Our next meeting is October 6th, I believe.
Yeah.
And I have contacted Brian Hughes' office. I may have to just continue contacting it because I haven't heard back. But hopefully he will join us at our next meeting. And Julie, I believe you're supposed to be at our next meeting also.
Yes, I have that on my calendar. Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Okay, thank you too for
Thank
coming.
you.
Does anybody else have anything? I'm sorry, what? Everybody's frozen. My network bandwidth is low. I apologize. I don't know what's going on. As far as I can tell, this meeting is adjourned unless anybody has any further business.
Bye.
All right. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you next month.
See you next month, Julie.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess those are exits.